The Cleveland Cavaliers are clear championship contenders. Let's just start this video right there. And it's kind of crazy that they are not being talked about. And I hate to be the guy that's like, no one's talking about X, because that's usually a straw man thing people want to use as a genesis to get a takeoff on Twitter or something. But it really is crazy that nobody is talking about the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers are 29-4 through 33 games of this season. 29-4. They're on pace for over 70 wins, which is crazy. I did not think they would be here at this point. I don't even think the most optimistic Cavalier enthusiast going into this season saw this coming. But here we are, 29-4. Through 33 games in NBA history, the Cavs have posted or are tied for the 5th best record through 33 games in NBA history. And there are actually quite a few teams that posted a 29-4 record through 33 games. And then obviously, you know, the 67 76ers, the 72 Lakers, and the Bulls in 96 went 30-3. And then, of course, the 2016 Warriors went 31-2. That whole run was still crazy. But this Cavs run that they are on right now is absolutely bonkers, and they are checking off every box for every skeptic. And I understand that people have this tendency to think the Cavs are a cute regular season team. Cute regular season teams don't do the shit the Cavs are doing, where you're racing against history for the most winningest season. They are on pace for over 70 wins. And it's a team that has the DNA of all those other teams, right? Balanced. You can initiate offense from any spot on the court, and anyone that's trying to game plan or scout against the Cavaliers, I imagine it's got to be difficult because you don't know who's going to initiate offense on any given possession. You can have Evan Mobley bring the ball up the court. You can give Evan Mobley the ball at the elbow. He can run dribble handoffs with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, pick and roll with Darius Garland. He can run the high-low stuff with Jared Allen. And by the way, I just want to stick on Evan Mobley really quick. You can just tell. You know, some players, you could just tell that their swagger from one season to the next is night and day. And Evan Mobley's swag on the court right now and his confidence is very palpable. You can tell in his handle. You can tell in how he drives at people. You can tell how he defends. He's a little bit more nasty this year. You can just tell he's taking a full-on leap. Darius Garland, finally healthy, went through a lot of shit last year, and a lot of people were secretly kind of, you know, selling their stock on Darius Garland. Not me, though. And then Darius Garland bounces back, and he's having an awesome year. Donovan Mitchell isn't averaging like 30 points a game or whatever. This is a much more balanced Cavaliers team. First in offense, 8th in defense. Last 3 weeks really, their offensive rating has been absolutely bonkers off the charts. 3-pointers, attacking the rim, and then on the occasion that they get in the mid-range, they're super accurate from there because their 2-star guards can just score from any spot on the floor. But back to Darius Garland, 20 points per game, 7 assists per game, nearly 50, 40, 90, just having an incredible bounce-back season. And you could tell they're using him in very different ways. Obviously, they're still using him as a ball handler, pick-and-roll ball handler a lot, but his shooting allows the Cavs to use him off-ball whenever you're running action with Mitchell or Mobley or Jared Allen, who is shooting 1,000% from the field this year. It's just incredible to me that I would say JB Bickerstaff, ultimately he wasn't the guy to cut it in Cleveland, right? But I still thought he was a better coach than he got credit for. But Kenny Atkinson comes in, makes a few tweaks, and now all of a sudden the Cavs are a juggernaut. And the Mobley-Allen lineups, they always had good net ratings, good defensive ratings. Offensive rating was still pretty solid, even though there were times where it looked clunky. But they still staggered. They still have multiple ball handlers. And now you have Kenny Atkinson coming in and kind of changing a lot of things. The offense becomes more balanced. And now all of a sudden they have this ability, like I mentioned, that all the other teams that have posted this kind of record have, where all the special contenders have, where you can just push the button. Is a term I kind of came up with, the button. A lot of great teams have it. You know, when the defending champ or whoever it is, you could go to the 2015-16 Warriors that won 73 games. You could go to the 2013 Miami Heat, the 2012 Miami Heat. You could go to some of those Spurs teams that just at one point in the game, they're either down or they're in a dogfight with another team or they're up by 1 or 2 or whatever. It's a close nip and tuck game. And then they hit this gear. They press this button and go to this special gear that very few teams in history are capable of. And they just start beating the brakes off of you. And that is exactly what the Cavs keep doing to these teams. And people are just like, oh, you know, I'm not so sure about the playoffs or whatever. Look, we'll get to the playoffs when we get there. I think they are clearly a championship contender. I actually think earlier in the year, I would still pick the Celtics to come out of the East, but I think it's a lot more closer now than I thought previously to start the year when the Cavs were like 16-1 and I was still like, oh, I would still take the Celtics to come out of the East. No, it is a lot closer than people think. It might be closer to 50-50 than people give it credit for. I would still take the Celtics, and I do think the Cavs have a particular weakness that I will talk about later because, remember, no team is perfect before any Cavs fans, you know, get mad at me or whatever. No team is perfect. Every team has weaknesses, and I will talk about that later. But the Cavs have clearly demonstrated that not only are they balanced, they have star power, they have bigs, they have a really good bench. By the way, they were achieving all of this without Max Strus for most of the year, their big free agent signing 2 summers ago, and now he's back. They just have shooting across the board, they have defense across the board, they have rebounding across the board, but more importantly, they have special talented players across the board. And when you have good coaching on top of that, and Kenny Atkinson coming from a culture like the Golden State Warriors, sort of like how Mike Brown came from Golden State to Sacramento and kind of changed everything around before he got fired last week. And Kenny Atkinson has come in this year, has kind of unlocked parts of Darius Garland, made it a point to run more stuff through Evan Mobley. Now all of a sudden you got a really well-balanced and elite team, like a flat-out elite team. Now, what were the weaknesses I was mentioning earlier? Well, Sly Hooper, you're talking about Cavs' weaknesses. Why don't you actually talk about it? Well, I will talk about it. Let's look at the losses the Cavaliers have had. And look, there's only 4 losses, right? They have a small sample size of losing. That's when you know your season's good. You have a small sample size of losing games, right? But I do think it was a problem a little bit last year, too. And that is something that I have talked with Evan Dammarell about. Evan Dammarell from Right Down Euclid, independent media site. Check it out. Evan Dammarell and his staff does great work covering all things Cleveland sports, including the Cavaliers. But I was talking to him about it, and teams that are loaded with wings still give the Cavs trouble. Like, their 2 losses came against the Hawks. Back-to-back losses, but that's a team with a lot of wings. A lot of wings that could switch everything, can stay in front of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, while also not giving up too much size to Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. Same thing with the Celtics, even though the Cavaliers did get their get back against the Celtics last month. Teams like that. Like, for another example, I wouldn't pick the Magic to beat the Cavaliers in a series, obviously. They beat them last year. The Cavaliers got a hell of a lot better. But the 2 versions of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner that we saw this year, if they come back healthy, that's a scary duo to face. That's a scary proposition. So that is one particular archetype of team that I think the Cavs are weak against. And that's also because they really don't have like a true 3 or a true like 3 that can double back as a 4 or a power forward, a small ball power forward, aside from Dean Wade. And outside of that, you have Isaac Okoro, obviously, You have Karis LeVert, who kind of can masquerade as a 3 a little bit. But just in terms of that position where the Cavs are the weakest, teams like the Celtics, the Magic, the Hawks, teams like that are going to give the Cavs some problems in a playoff series. The Knicks are another example, though, even though their offense is awesome, I think they could attack Karl Anthony Towns pretty easily on the defensive end. But teams like that, I think, would give the Cavs the most trouble. Now, obviously, that isn't going to be like the main reason why I'm just out on the Cavaliers. But I do think it's a weakness to point out. I don't think teams that are ran through their bigs like the Bucks or the Sixers or, say, the Nuggets, I think the Cavs are more equipped to defend those type of teams now than they were like last year or the year before or whatever. But teams with a lot of wings that specifically pick at the Cavs' weak spots on their team, I think the Cavs could face a little trouble with those type of teams. But regardless, everybody else should be scared of the Cavs because they're balanced offensively, they're balanced defensively. They have talent across the board. They have talented guards. They have an up-and-coming big man who is going to be one of the best bigs in the league. I truly believe that. And Evan Mobley. You already got a really good big in Jared Allen. You got shooting with Sam Merrill, George Niang, Dean Wade, Karis LeVert, etc., Max Strus, etc. You just got a lot of stuff going for you, including good coaching. So I can't wait to see how this season keeps on evolving for the Cavaliers. Will they get to 70 wins? And then more importantly, I can't wait to see how they perform in the playoffs because I do think they can come out of the East. Now, it sounds like I'm hedging, but I would still pick the Celtics to come out of the East. But if you were asking me a month or two ago, I would have said Celtics like a lock. But the Cavaliers, they're changing a lot of opinions, and I hope people catch on soon.